Good morning. As we begin to gather here this morning, I invite you to join us in song as we sing Draw the Circle. Draw the circle wide. Thank you, Erica. Yes. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide.
Well, welcome to First Unitarian Church of Rochester. I am Reverend AJ. I use he and him pronouns, and I am joined in leading worship this morning with Jenna, our worship associate, Florence, our director of operations, who, as you may or may not know, actually among all of our staff, not all of us are Unitarian Universalists, but those of us that are, Florence has been the UU the longest. So we're excited to have her in worship with us with that fun fact. Reverend Vertus was going to be with us this morning, but unfortunately he's under the weather, so I believe he's joining us online, but will not be part of the worship service. And of course we have Orange Sky bringing energy and music and love. So thank you to everyone being part of worship, and that includes all of you. You all being here makes worship possible and real. And part of what you as the community make real is our mission as a church. And our mission here at First Unitarian is that through spiritual connection and community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves, we open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. We acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, and part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral and contemporary lands First Unitarian now stands. If you are new or new-ish around here with us, we encourage you to stop by the welcome desk so we can help you get connected. If you're here because you're going through a hard time or you're worried about somebody else who is, please connect with a lay pastoral care associate. We have them at services. We have one online in the Zoom chat. And in fact, we have a whole team that operates not just on Sunday mornings, but throughout the week and years. Of lay pastoral care associates who support and accompany people through times of great difficulty, as well as times of great joy. And we have some new members of that team to introduce to you all and to commission into this ministry. So at this time, I'm going to make way for them, invite up all the members of our lay pastoral care team. So we got the microphone. our commissioning. And yes, and Shannon, our pastoral care coordinator, who helps coordinate this team. So thank you, Shannon. Greg and Mary, thank you for your love and service and dedication to this community. I present you to the members and friends of the First Unitarian Church of Rochester and commission you to provide pastoral care to this body. At its simplest, lay pastoral care means to journey alongside someone. It means that you are the presence of First Unitarian with someone in a moment of need. It is beyond being a friend and a fellow congregant, and it is made possible by the healthy boundaries of time and space. And you provide this care in relationship with one another under the leadership of Reverend Sherry, myself, and Shannon. Know that as pastoral care associates, your primary responsibility is to be present and provide support to the membership of First Unitarian in their moments of need. Do you, Greg and Mary, commit to accompany this community in their moments of crisis and sorrow while celebrating in its joys?
We thank you for your faith in us. We vow to do our best to live up to the charge you have given us.
We promise to remember that we are doing this work in community and will seek counsel as needed.
We will endeavor to maintain healthy boundaries and confidentiality.
We understand that it is not our responsibility to try to fix another's problems.
And we will provide care within the bounds of the training that has been made available to us.
All this and more we will do with love and compassion.
May you be blessed as you are a blessing to this community. And Jane and Elise, who is online, as representatives of the already commissioned lay pastoral care team, will you commit to supporting these new pastoral care associates, to offering your experience, wisdom, and mutual support as you share in this ministry of community care?
We will.
Members and friends of First Unitarian, will you commit to supporting these leaders in their ministry, to reaching out when you are in need, and continuing to care for and be cared by this community? Thank you.
Can I get a louder "we will"? Thank you. As a small token of our care and our thankfulness for the wonderful support, care, and love you will be and continue to provide our community, we present you with a little love heart so that you can hold it and remember that not only do you love our community, but our community also loves you.
Thank you. Another way that we collectively care for our spirits, especially through grief and loss, is through the annual ritual of our memory tree service. This worship service will be held on the last Sunday in October, on the 29th. And if a loved one of yours has passed away in the last year, and you would like their name included in the sung litany that is a part of that service, please email it to me by next Sunday. You can reach me at revaj@rochesterunitarian.org. I now invite you to center yourself and prepare for worship in whatever way is best for your body, a deep breath or a shifting of positions. I invite you online to light a chalice wherever you may be. Here in the sanctuary, Jenna will light ours as I read the unison words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
This morning, we will be singing Building Bridges together. So we're going to sing it and teach it to you, and then we're going to sing it in a round. If you are on this side of the room and the folks in the middle, split yourselves how it speaks to you. You'll follow me, and folks on this side of the room will follow Elias. All right? Let's get a little something going. out to you? Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Again, building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. And follow me on this side. Building bridges between our divisions. I'll reach out to you. Will you reach out to me with all of our voices and all of our visions? Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I'll reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions. Last time, building bridges such sweet our divisions. Once more, I'll reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Hello. I'm Jenna Cohen. I use she, her pronouns. And recently, I was reunited with some old high school friends to celebrate one of their birthdays. We spent the better part of the day and evening reminiscing and talking, laughing, catching up. And I was talking to one of them about the summer camp I used to attend when I was younger and how much of a profound impact it had on me and instilled beliefs that I still hold very near and dear. Things like being the friend to all harmless wildlife and appreciating and protecting the natural world around me. It was a Native American-based camp, or so I thought at the time, but it was remarkably whitewashed and blatantly perpetuated harmful stereotypes about Native people. I was telling her that looking back on those summers and rituals I participated in with adult eyes and an evolved awareness of what's culturally appropriate has morphed some of the most treasured childhood memories into some of the most deeply uncomfortable and admittedly cringy. And as I'm talking about these problematic things I participated in, I look up at her face and she's nodding in horror, giving me one of these. Oh, yeah. And I think that's why we come to church. I think we need to take a self-inventory of what thoughts and biases we have that don't serve us or actively harm our community. To take a deep dive into our values and challenge or unlearn long-held beliefs and make way for growth and evolution of our worldview.
I'm a white man living in a white man's world. Under our roof is a baby girl. I thought this world could be hers one day, but her mama knew better. I'm a white man living in a white man's town. Wanna take a shot of cocaine and burn it down. Mama wants to change that Nashville sound, but they're never gonna let her. the oceans of cotton. I'm a white man looking in a black man's eyes, wishing I'd never been one of the guys who pretended not to hear another white man's joke. Oh, the times ain't forgotten. There's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. Still breathing, it's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one's fate. Nation. I think the man upstairs must have took a vacation. I still have faith, but I don't know why. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes.
I have a story to share with you to ground our worship this morning. I wrote it myself, except that it's inspired by an internet meme attributed to one Adam Bates, and I have gratitude to the Reverends Elizabeth Mount, Lisa Bovey-Kemper, and Alexa Fraser for feedback. Once upon a time, there were two villages, nestled between the mountains in two neighboring valleys. And because this is a fable, of course, it was different animals that lived in each village. One was a village of pigs, and the other was a village of owls. Now, the pigs and owls made very good neighbors, and the valleys they lived in were equally bountiful, and they wanted to share this bounty and their community, and so they invited and welcomed all animals of all kinds from all over to come and live with them in the valleys. And because this is a fable, every kind of animal you could imagine answered the call and came to live in both villages. You name it: ducks, rabbits, mice, sheep, wolves, llamas, anacondas, I don't know, all kinds of animals. There were so many animals of each kind that there were diverse communities in each village. And they all lived different lives because they were different kinds of animals. And so it wasn't always easy to live together, right? There were sometimes issues to figure out or disagreements to work through. But pigs are smart and compassionate creatures, and so they worked hard to be inclusive of all kinds of animals. And owls pride themselves on being wise and just, so they too wanted to treat all the animals with the same welcome. So both the pigs and the owls tried to govern their villages by the principles of tolerance. And living from these principles, they were able to lead their separate villages with relative peace and cooperation, except that a very serious issue did arise concerning the sheep and the wolves. You see, in this fable, to be a wolf means to be a predator of the sheep, and to be a sheep means to be vulnerable to the wolves. And so this presented a problem in both villages, but each handled it slightly differently. In the village of the owls, the sheep went to the owls and said simply, "Please do something about the wolves, otherwise they will prey on us and eat us, and we won't be safe." The owls brought the wolves before them, and the wolves said, "You know, what makes this village great is the tolerance that you have for animals of all kinds. Please prove your great tolerance and let us remain, even though we are predators of the sheep." The owls heard both of these requests and took time to deliberate. But most of the owls felt that the wolves had made a pretty good point about tolerance. How could they call themselves tolerant if they kicked out a certain kind of animal? They decided that tolerance was a moral absolute. It was something that had to be completely and impartially followed. They had to be completely and impartially tolerant of all animals in order to live out their principle of tolerance. So they let the wolves stay. They told the sheep that they were being tolerant and that since theirs was a tolerant village, that made it a safe space for every kind of animal. So the sheep would have nothing to worry about. Some of the sheep believed this. Some hoped it would be true, and others weren't so sure. Meanwhile, in the village of the pigs, the wolves made the same argument. What makes this village great is the tolerance that you have for animals of all kinds. Please prove your great tolerance and let us remain, although we are predators of the sheep. The sheep of this village went to the pigs and said simply, please do something about the wolves, otherwise they will prey on us and eat us, and we won't be safe. The pigs heard both of these requests and took time to deliberate. Unlike the owls, most of the pigs were more persuaded by the arguments of the sheep. How could they call their village tolerant if they allowed wolves to prey on the sheep? They decided that tolerance was a quality of community which they had to protect in order to live out the principle of tolerance. So they did not tolerate the wolves, at least not without conditions. They told them that because theirs was a tolerant village, they actually couldn't tolerate any kind of animal that was going to make it unsafe for the other animals in the village. So the wolves would have to change. They would have to refrain from eating the sheep or else find their own community some other place. The sheep breathed a sigh of relief. The wolves, however, got very upset and yelled that the pigs were not nearly as tolerant as the generous village of the owls, which they promptly returned to. Over time, the villages continued to change, but not because new kinds of animals were arriving. It happened gradually at first, but in the village of the owls, there were fewer and fewer sheep. At first, a few disappeared mysteriously, and then more and more. And then a number of the sheep left the village to go join the village of the pigs because they could see that clearly the wolves were preying on the sheep and eating them, even though the owls told them that there wasn't anything that could be done because they had to tolerate the wolves just as they had tolerated the sheep. And so some of the other animals began to disappear as well, and many of them, those who remained, left that village and joined the sheep, moving to the village of the pigs. And that is the story of how the two villages came to be. The village of the pigs that tolerated everybody except the wolves and maintained a diverse community with many different kinds of animals. And the village of the owls that welcomed everybody, that tolerated everybody, and ended up only having owls and wolves in it. Here ends the story.
We enter now into a ritual to bring what is on our hearts and lay it on the altar of community and spirit. Honoring the complexities of life, bring to mind whatever grief, growth, or gratitude is alive within you. Online, you're invited to share in the chat, and here in the sanctuary, you are invited forward to light a candle on either side. If you would like an usher to bring a candle to you, please raise your hand. May we now share in this ritual of community care and witness to one another's hearts. all that we hold in our hearts for ourselves, for each other, and for the world. It is held in this community and by a love that will not let us go. Amen.
I invite you now to a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer, a time of awareness within ourselves and of connections beyond boundaries, connections to one another in that interdependent web of life of which we are but each a small thread. I invite you into this time of shared silence and breath. As we breathe in, we are connected. As we breathe out, we are connected. This morning, with the violence and war in Palestine and Israel heavy on our hearts, I share these words adapted by the Reverend Kevin Jago, inspired by wisdom from Rabbi Sheila Weinberg, Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis, Dr. Saleh Kolaki, and UUA President Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. To love one another may sound simple, but in moments of violence, it is a practice of deep faith and deeper connection, deeper conviction. May we remember the interdependence of our paths and our lives as we call our collective attention to this violent moment. May we acknowledge this moment is not isolated from history or context. Two peoples, one land. Three faiths, one root. One earth, one mother, one sky. One beginning, one future, one destiny. One broken heart. One God. One love. One humanity. We set our attention on those who have died, those who have lost loved ones, and those who are in danger in this very moment. Spirit of life, grant us a vision of unity. May we see the many in the one and the one in the many. Guide us gently and firmly towards each other, towards peace. Violence is not conditional. You cannot kill people and kidnap children, then point to circumstances to say this isn't truly violent. Freedom is not conditional. You cannot wall people in, prohibit their departure, subject them to random attacks, and then say that they are free. May we advocate for paths to less violence and greater freedom. May we not allow grief and anger to erase another's humanity. For Islam teaches peace. For Judaism teaches repair. For Christianity teaches love. For our own Unitarian Universalism teaches justice. And all religious traditions call us towards these themes and to use nonviolence when not warped into tools of war. We are one global family living tenuously on the same human-impacted earth. Let us center ourselves in justice as we call for peace, and ground ourselves in love as we center in justice. To love one another may sound simple, but in moments of violence, it is a practice of deep faith and deeper conviction. May our minds create a vision of the world radical enough to be called holy. May our actions contain the promise of hope and the commitment to justice. May our hearts remember that love is a power that resists all forms of fear. By our thoughts, by our actions, by our hearts, by our very breath. May it be so. Blessed be.
are getting better. Do you feel the same? Will it make it easier on you now? You got someone to blame. Well, it's one life, when it's one need in the night, one love we get to share it. But at least you, baby, if you don't care for it. Did I disappoint you? Leave a bad taste in your mouth? You act like you never had love. You want me to go without? Well, it's too late tonight to drag the past out into the light. We're one, but we're not the same. We get to carry each other, carry each other. One. Have you come here for forgiveness? Have you come to raise the dead? Have you come here to play Jesus to the lepers in your hair? But I asked too much, more than a lie. You gave me nothing, now it's all I got. We're one, but we're not the same. When we hurt each other, then we do it again. You say love is a temple, love's a higher law. Love is a temple, love's a higher law. You ask me to enter, and then you make me crawl. And I can't keep holding on to what you got. When all you got is her. One love, one life, one life. You got to do what you should. One life with each other, sisters, brothers. One life, but we're not the same. We got to carry each other, carry each other.
How We Belong by Reverend Alex Jensen. Unitarian Universalists can and do believe many different things about life's biggest questions, about God, the greater mystery, about what happens to us when we die. Though you can't be a Unitarian Universalist if you don't agree about some of the more important parts of this faith. You can't be a UU or you won't be much of a good one, if you cling to prejudiced or oppressive views of others, if you in any way believe that someone else is somehow inferior or anything less than human. You can't be a you if you can't tolerate big questions or critically examine what it is that you believe and why. You can't be a you if you fundamentally believe there is only one path or one spiritual truth out there to make meaning of life and to understand it. If you cling to just one set of beliefs, dogmas, or creeds and shut out the possibilities and offerings of other traditions that are different from your own, you're not a Unitarian Universalist. As wide as our welcoming embrace is, there are some things that are non-negotiable for us as a people. Those non-negotiables are the inherent worth and dignity of each person, no matter who they are, the rigor of critical thinking about ourselves and our beliefs, and the bounty of the world's traditions that each hold a piece of the cosmic puzzle about how we might understand these wild, wondrous lives of ours. No, you can't be a Unitarian Universalist and believe anything you want. You can believe in lots of things, but there are some fundamental things that bring us and bind us together as a tradition and faith.
Everything that our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. So each week we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester. And part of that generosity is half of our Sunday offering going to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. Today we share our plate with Rock Acts, an interfaith community building organization working to make a more just and equitable Rochester. In the spirit of abundance and generosity, our offering will now be received with gratitude.
Hello. Good morning. As we prepare to receive your offering, today we are going to sing Better Way by Ben Harper. If you were here a couple of months ago, we had the opportunity to perform this song, or if you were here at 9:15 this morning, you also were able to sing this song with us, and I invite you, because you've had practice, to sing it loud and proud. So right now, we're going to teach you Elias's part. We're going to sing it 4 times through, once to learn, once to try, once to feel centered, and then one more time to feel very enthusiastic, so that when we are making our way through the song, you'll see a cue from any one of us to go, and you're going to join us. Sound good? Excellent. Elias, what do we got?
I believe in a better way.
And then the 3 of us are going to go together.
I believe in a better way.
All right, we're going to have all of you try it.
I believe
in a better way.
I don't think that's the right one.
I don't think that's the...
We need the other chord.
Oh, do you?
Sorry, everybody.
That was right though.
Wow. Sorry, we did just do this about an hour
I
ago.
believe in a better way. Well, you all seem very strong.
'Cause I believe in a better way.
That is the right
That's
one.
the one.
There we go. Sing it again.
'Cause I believe in a better way. That was 2.
Here,
Third
nice
time.
and loud.
'Cause I believe in a better way.
All right, one more with real enthusiasm.
'Cause I believe in a better way.
All right.
Excellent. Sorry, guys. That took us a second.
And you feel it, we invite you to dance with us as you sing.
got there.
We got there.
Thank you, Orange Sky, for bringing such energy and beauty into our worship and ministering to us with music. I believe in a better way. One of the ways that we talk about and think is better in Unitarian Universalist circles is, well, drawing the Unitarian Universalist circles wider, as Orange Sky also sang for us at the beginning of worship. I don't know that the original authors of that song were thinking of Universalist poet Edwin Markham when they wrote it, but for me that song has always been connected with his brief poem called Outwitted. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, a rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. Isn't that a beautiful expression of Universalist, in particular, theology and practice? Our living tradition draws the circle wide in theology and spiritual practice and wisdom from diverse religious and philosophical traditions, even those that have some strains of those traditions that would call us heretics. And the wisdom that we find there calls us to welcome in people from all backgrounds and identities into our community. And in fact, that practice, that really is the ministry that Unitarian Universalism is called to, I think. It really is the message. That is the message in the practice. It's not about helping us achieve some other mission end or evangelical work for some other reason, but it is the end itself. Quite literally, our congregation, as you may know, orients itself towards ends that have been articulated, that guide what we are trying to do and what we're trying to become as a church. And our first end is that we are an inclusive community of belonging, welcoming all people to find their spiritual home with us. But let me complicate that a little bit, because similar to how our religious pluralism is not as simple as you can believe whatever you want, right? As Reverend Alex Jensen reminded us with the reading that Florence read. Similar to how that's not the case, welcoming all people and creating an inclusive community of belonging isn't as simple as bringing in every single person, no questions asked, no boundaries set, no limits of belonging or behavior, no understanding or guidance of what it means to be together. Charles Vogel writes in his book, The Art of Community, if everyone in the world belongs in your community, this means your community cannot be distinguished from no community. As demonstrated in the fable from earlier, another part of this is that sometimes no community really looks like no safety. The owls welcomed and tolerated everyone as a matter of absolute principle, which meant that no one was safe from the predators. So boundaries are a good thing, or at least they can be when employed in service of our highest values. Note that in the Markham poem and the song, it's not about having no circles. It's not an anti-circle song. It's about drawing the widest possible circles, and in fact, continuing to widen the circles as a continual practice. But there is still a circle. There is still a line being drawn somewhere. As Charles Vogel defines them, boundaries are the recognized demarcation between insiders and outsiders. The boundaries should be more about making the inside space safe for insiders than it is about keeping outsiders out. Where there's a boundary, insiders feel more confident that they share values and that they understand one another better. Now, different kinds of communities will define themselves differently, create some of those boundaries differently to protect different kinds of identities and purposes. Often, at least in religions derived from the Abrahamic traditions, there's a creedal statement or doctrine that is used as the shared defining feature. But in our non-creedal religion, Unitarian Universalism doesn't have such a doctrine that we can point to, saying if you agree with this theological statement or this cosmological view, then you're in, otherwise you are not one of us. And Unitarian Universalists, we're the people who like it that way when it comes to matters of theology or religious belief. And there's a line somewhere. In the words of Reverend Alex Jensen, if you cling to prejudiced views or oppressive views of others, if you in any way believe that someone else is somehow inferior or anything less than human, you won't be much of a good you. Another colleague of mine, the Reverend Gretchen Haley, puts it this way. Instead of we welcome everyone, we would do better to say we welcome everyone who welcomes everyone. She continues saying that we recognize that these values require us to limit acceptance wherever acceptance is limited, to limit diversity wherever diversity is limited, and to limit tolerance wherever tolerance is limited. It's almost a tongue twister. I'm out of breath saying it, and it's a little paradoxical, right? Our ultimate goal is to welcome everyone. But if we welcome even those who won't welcome everyone, then we're actively making a hostile environment for diversity and difference, and that's not welcoming. So that means we can't welcome those who aren't on board with welcoming everyone, so we don't welcome everyone. Now, Unitarian Universalists are not the first to encounter this kind of paradox. In 1945, the Austrian Jewish philosopher Karl Popper, who had to flee the Nazi regime, wrote a book called The Open Society and Its Enemies. And in it, he described the tolerance paradox this way. Unlimited tolerance would lead to the disappearance of tolerance. We should therefore claim in the name of tolerance the right not to tolerate the intolerant. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed, and tolerance with them. Now, I want to bring into a conversation a meme that I've seen go viral in the last few years a couple times that talks about this paradox and references Karl Popper specifically. And I've seen it go around, particularly in UU online spaces. And every time I see it, I'm a little unsatisfied and a little dissatisfied. So I'm going to describe it to you, and we'll see if anyone else shares my concern or if it sounds pretty good. And I'll be sure to explain myself, at some point in this sermon. So the image of this meme is just one of those paradoxical M.C. Escher type cubes that could not possibly exist in real life. But the text says, the paradox, and it's sort of titled as, the paradox of tolerance solved. The paradox of tolerance disappears if you look at tolerance not as a moral standard, but as a social contract. If someone does not abide by the terms of the contract, then they are not covered by it. In other words, the intolerant are not following the rules of the social contract of mutual tolerance. Since they have broken the terms of the contract, they are no longer covered by the contract, and their intolerance should not be tolerated. So, hands up if you're like, yeah, that sounds pretty good and makes some good sense. I see a lot of hands coming up, and that also makes sense. Is there anybody who would raise their hand saying, oh yeah, there's something a little uncomfortable about that for me? All right, I'm seeing some hands, and not just from people who are also here at the 9:15 service. The two problems I have, one is the idea that a paradox needs to be solved in the first place. If it could be solved, it wouldn't be a paradox. But I'll let that one set aside for a moment. The bigger issue for me is the idea of this focus on the social contract aspect of it. The problem with a contract is that I worry it leads to a very transactional and punitive way of thinking. If you don't do this one thing around tolerance, then you're no longer protected. I worry about it being a slippery slope. Who gets to decide what is and isn't keeping to tolerance? Now, I will admit, and I want to be clear, that in the actual lived practice of not tolerating the intolerant, the idea of the social contract does get us 95% of the way there. The way that things play out will probably be the same, whether you think of this as an unsolved paradox or as a social contract. And particularly in terms of broader society or the government of a diverse democracy, I'm content to talk about the social contract in that context. But the thing is, I keep seeing it shared by Unitarian Universalists. And correct me if I'm wrong, is there a contract in Unitarian Universalist communities? No. What do we have instead? Covenant, yes. We are held together by covenant, which is the promises that we make to each other about how we want to be together in community. Promises that we know sometimes we might fail to live into, and we know that others will fail to keep those promises to us, but we still maintain those promises and that community and that covenant, even through all the breaking of promises. And these promises are grounded in the shared values of our highest aspirations, values like tolerance. So our covenantal promises, these boundaries the boundaries that we articulate about what is and is not how we want to be as a community, they should be promises that create that inside space that is safe and tolerant while trying to draw that circle as wide as possible. But they should be oriented towards that internal safety rather than being oriented to articulating who they keep out, who they are punishing in order to preserve tolerance. But in order to preserve tolerance, they must, by definition, our covenants must be intolerant of at least the behaviors that are intolerant of others. Because, of course, it is behaviors and impacts and not exactly people themselves that cause intolerance. Right, so in the fable, it's not about the wolves being wolves. The wolves are a metaphor for humans who hold certain beliefs about the worthiness of other humans, who exhibit certain behaviors about that belief that cause harm and exclusion and sometimes extermination of those deemed unworthy. But the issue is always the behavior, not the peoples themselves. So we might imagine an epilogue to the fable where some of the wolves in the village of the owls genuinely decide to give up their predatory ways and live in peace with the sheep in the pig village. And maybe this is such a radical transformation of the heart that we don't call these animals wolves anymore, we might call them dogs. Just as we might use different language to talk about an ex-Klansman who is working to make reparations for their past deeds and to help de-radicalize young white men, we would talk about that person differently than we do somebody who is an active and enthusiastic member of the Ku Klux Klan. Because our faith tradition really does affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And part of that means holding on to, not naively, but holding on to the hope of transformation, of growth, of reconciliation and repair. And so if our response to intolerance as a behavior is to just shut someone out and say, here's the door, never come back, well, we've only done half the work. We may have done some important harm reduction, but we haven't actually drawn the circle wider. When the reality of tolerance is threatened, we do have to have that reaction, that way of saying, actually, we don't tolerate that. And we have to say, here's how you can stay in community. Here's what we can do so that we don't have to draw the boundary of exclusion. But here's what behavior needs to look like to promote tolerance for all. So as we navigate these responses, and we pay attention to what promotes tolerance and what diminishes it, we have to be thoughtful when somebody says, I don't feel like I'm being tolerated. We have to use our reason and conscience and determine whether they're saying that because an essential part of who they are, their race or their gender identity, for instance, that is what's not being tolerated. Or is it because they said or did something that wasn't tolerant of others or wasn't welcoming to somebody else based on their unchangeable identity? For example, to make an example of this, let's compare two scenarios in which a white person makes a racist joke in the presence of people from a diversity of races. This is somewhat mentioned in that song, The White Man's World. In one scenario, the other white people pretend not to hear, as it says in the song, and so the people of color in the room, of course, are going to feel uncomfortable, unwelcomed, not tolerated. They'll probably see themselves out and not return, much like the sheep who abandoned the village of the owls. But in another scenario, the other white people in the group push back and say, that's not okay. That kind of joke isn't something we tolerate in this community. Now the offending joker responds, maybe with an apology and a commitment to do better. And that would be great. That is what we are hoping to promote in our communities of greater tolerance. But this person might respond with fragility and defensiveness and feeling hurt, feeling unwelcome, or that their sense of humor was not tolerated, because it wasn't. But this is where our paradox of toleration radar should have its alarm bells going off and have us remind ourselves that this person is not asking for the same kind of tolerance that is being maintained for the victims of the racialized joke. And still, it's important that whatever the reaction is, whatever this immune system response of community, isn't overly zealous or punitive, and it isn't contractual. It should always be oriented to, how can we reimagine this so that everyone feels welcome, rather than, well, who do we now need to exclude now that some harm has occurred? Because our faith and our values call us to this value of growth and change and learning. We have to leave room for people to make mistakes, to learn and grow, and even room for ourselves to make mistakes. Acknowledging I myself might be the one who interprets something as intolerant and jumps to make that reaction, but then realize that I was wrong, I misinterpreted something, and I'm the one who needs to grow and to change. That is very possible. And so we should, as Unitarian Universalists, always begin from a place of tolerance and curiosity, seeking first to understand and always inviting people into learning and growth before moving to the harder drawing of a boundary. And we should still be aware of that tool in our toolbox and be willing to use it when appropriate. Again, the line is always somewhere, and we can't abdicate the responsibility of being aware of it and being willing to strengthen that line when necessary and appropriate. Otherwise, we find ourselves with a community of no boundaries that is, of course, no community at all. And even when the hard boundary does need to be drawn, it isn't necessarily forever. If there is true repentance and repair of relationship and changed behavior, we can make room for that transformation and draw the circle wider still. For a great resource for what this can look like, I cannot recommend highly enough the UUA's common read for this year. It's a book called On Repentance and Repair by Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. Because making room for and celebrating that transformation is also a part of drawing the circle wide enough to take them in, as the poem says. So to put the paradox of tolerance in the words of Markham's poem, if our goal is to draw the circle wide, then we have to both put in the work to draw it wider, right? The work of welcoming and inclusion and tolerance. And we also have to resist the efforts or even just the impacts, regardless of intent, the impacts that draw it smaller. Because if our community tolerates both those drawing the circle wide and those drawing it smaller, well, then at best we end up with the same sized circle. And at worst, those drawing the circle wide are frustrated and may give up. Those who need it to be wider won't be able to stay, and the circle will get smaller and smaller. So instead, to truly draw the circle wider and wider, we must not tolerate the desires and forces which sometimes come from our own selves, the scared or hurting parts of ourselves that seek to draw that circle smaller. Sometimes smaller feels safer. But the shape of our non-tolerance must be wide enough to keep the doors of repentance and repair open. So let this be our covenant and promise, that we will draw the circle wide, and we will draw the circle wide enough to keep in even those who would push others out, even those who would attempt to be intolerant, by drawing healthy boundaries and maintaining consequences for intolerant behavior, but not as a way to shun out the intolerant, as a way to maintain tolerance for all and show the way of returning to true belonging. It is a promise to the oppressed and to the oppressor. Here is community. Here is what it means to be tolerant, to be inclusive, to be affirming of all people. Here's how beautiful it could be if you joined us. But if you don't, or if you're going to actively work against our efforts at being that affirming and wide community, we're not just going to roll over. But our end game is not exclusion. Our tactics are not transactional and punitive. Our end game is inclusion and pluralism. Our tactics are covenant and relationship. Our tactics are maintaining space at the table for everyone by being clear about what table manners are non-negotiable. May it be so, and may we move in ever wider circles.
We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. Speak your words with triumph, and I will watch your mouth. I'll march with you, my sister, to your place of fearing. We'll dive into those waters, swim to the clearing. We'll always keep our heads up. We'll always sing along. We'll walk the path of kindness, know where we belong. I'll march with you, my brother, to the mountain top. We'll hold back the dynamite, make the rumble stop, make the rumble stop. Oh, be a pillar, I'll be your mockingbird. We'll sing the rock of ages, yes, we will be heard. Let's form a great salvation through harmony and sound. We'll know the shape of progress, like nature it's always round. Like nature it's always round. We're moving in wide circles. We're opening our circles. We're moving in wide circles. We're opening our circles. We're moving in wide circles. We're opening our circles. We're moving in wide circles. We're opening our circles. We're moving in wide circles. We're opening our circles. We're opening our circles.
As we come to the end of our worship together, I want to invite anyone who's willing and able to stay after to help stack chairs, as many hands make light work in community. And now, please join me in the unison words to extinguish our chalice. Here we go. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Friends, the line is somewhere. May it always, like nature, be round. May we steward these boundaries of community with clarity and love, preserving the presence of tolerance, moving in ever wider circles to bring all into the embrace of true belonging. May it be so. Go in peace. We love you.